Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Fix Your BS podcast, where we explore the belief systems of the most successful people in five major pillars of life: relationships, business or career, finances, health, and faith. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Bursley, also known as Dr. G, and today we have an amazing guest. Met him in January of this year, Yosef Martin. He is the founder of BoxyCharm, which is a Miami-based online subscription beauty service that he launched in 2013. With his unique vision as CEO, BoxyCharm quickly became a major disruptor in the online subscription-based box industry. As the first brand to deliver full-size products to members, he's also the co-host of Liquidity in Liquor, and I am so excited to have him on to share his understanding and his beliefs around those five major pillars. So, Yosef, thank you, my friend, for being on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So let's start with give us a little bit of history about you. You know, man, you went from 0 to 500 million. That's a pretty major accomplishment that most people never experience.
It wasn't zero. It was $375. So it wasn't completely zero.
Okay. All right. So give me a little backstory about that.
Sure. So I'm originally from Israel. I came here with the purpose of getting my degree. So I finished the military service in Israel, stayed about 2 more years, tried to save some money, and I ended up coming down here and went to community college first, just to stay legal as a student. I get my status as a student, and eventually I ended up running into a point where I had to make money, and you're not allowed to get a job as a student, but you're allowed to open a company and take a job, which is a very inefficient way tax-wise, but it was the only way to stay legal in the United States. And boy, am I grateful for that, because that kind of like took me to a path of about a year searching for the what. What am I going to start? What am I going to sell? I'm full-time. I don't know what. So at first I thought I'm going to have arbitrage online. I'll find something for $1, sell it for $3. And quickly I found out it's not so simple. And we're talking around 2003. Until eventually I came up with the concept. Someone introduced me to the concept of surplus and liquidation merchandise by pallets and truckloads. And the idea was that you don't need money to make money in this one. You can broker all those deals. You can flip it. There's a way to get all the overstock inventory from Walmart, from Macy's, and so on by the truckloads. And so I learned anything I needed to know about search engine optimization at the time, 03, 04. And how to code a website, all that, and that's it. And that's how I started. And that was my baseline introduction to entrepreneurship. Bear in mind, I went to a business school. So when I started in community college, eventually you have to continue to a state university, and you have to eventually decide after you get all the curriculums, and you ask, what do I want to study? And honestly, at that time, I already had a business going. It wasn't big, but my mind was never about to get a job, so I didn't really care what I'm going to study. I just wanted to make sure it's going to keep me legal. So my attorney said, well, if you go to business school, I can argue that you can hire yourself based on the business that you already have. So go to business school. So I went to business school. I was struggling to understand what the hell did I even learn over there. I mean, I dumped so much cash, out-of-state tuition, and timing more than anything. And as soon as I graduated, my business went up 10x as soon as I graduated, because I didn't have to deal with school. I can focus all my mind into what I do, right? And it was actually a little bit more. I think I finished when it was about 800,000 in sales as a student. Imagine you're running a business that does 800,000 a year as an international student, just because you had to figure out how to pay those 20, 30,000 a year. Tuition, and then eventually went to 2 million, 5 million, 10 million, and that was my old business. Then I came up with BoxyCharm, which went from 2 million to 10 million, 20, 50, 130, 230, and then 465 million at the time when we sold it for 500 million. That was during COVID in 2020. So all that was kind of like stepping stones that pushes you either figure it out or you're going back to your country. Right? This is the building blocks as yourself, but you gotta figure it out. In the lieu of having help, no one have done what you've done before, just figure things out and build it. So that's how you start forming your foundation as an entrepreneur. And usually you need a stressful environment. And without that stress, right, that cooker pressure, you're not going to have the ability to be who you are on the other side. You got to crack that shell to be strong, and I'm grateful for that.
And that's one of the things I really like about you is that you took that stressor and that force and you allowed it to turn you into something even better. And a lot of people would crumble under that pressure. So I mean, kudos to you, man. That's really remarkable. If you look at those 5 pillars, relationships, career, business, finances, health, and faith. If you look at those 5 things, which one of those really pops out to you the most? If you say, hey, this pillar is the one that I'm focused on the most now.
They're all important. I feel like the way you think of when I look at core pillars for what you do, right? It has to have a goal at the end. Mm-hmm. So a pillar for me is the core strategy. And at the end, the strategy is just a highway to reach a destination, right? We ran, when I ran BoxyCharm, the first 2 years, I kind of understood what I'm doing subconsciously. But consciously, I never really articulate to myself, why am I making those decisions? And when you get to about 20 employees, you find that you're kind of like a chicken with your head cut off, and you have to go over every project, and you can't really clear the organization yet because there's something missing over there. And I understood it was direction on my end. And it was because I did not give myself those directions. And I had to think about what is my goal for the business? What is my company goal? And then how do I reach the goal? And it was 4 pillars, actually. It wasn't 5, it was 4. And it was grow the business. As long as you're profitable, I want to grow, because I had to ask myself every decision I'm taking, what does it help me achieve? And what do I really care about? And you have to process your subconscious decisions, because there is a processing that goes on in the back of your head when you're subconsciously taking a decision. It's just, you're not getting the documents for it. You're not getting the breakdown, the itemized item, because it's not your cortex. But when you start processing it and you think about this, you can absolutely understand why you made that intuitive decision. And you keep making those right decisions every time intuitively, but you ask why. So when I went back and asked myself again and again, I said, okay, I understand. I'm just trying to grow because everything I care about is having more members, because I understand that this is the engine. The product is profitable, but in order for the company to be profitable even more and more, I have to have more and more members. It's scalable to infinity. So ultimately, I said, okay, so if I'm trying to reach the goal, what is the goal? And the goal was simple: grow. And then I said, all right, but if I go to my staff and my team and I tell them grow, it would be like 30,000 feet high. I have to give them these highways to reach that destination. I want to reach New York City. Here is a highway from 95 Turnpike. This is your strategy. A strategy is a combination, the common denominator of combined tactics, right? It's a common denominator of multiple tactics. So think of a highway, and then the tactics are the bridges that combine that highway, the pavers, right? All of those are little tactics. But if you see a tactic that is part of that strategy, that means that tactic reach a strategy that helps you reach your destination. And that's how you know to make the right decision. So it was a struggle for us at first, but then once I understood this, I was telling everyone, look, this is our goal. Our goal is our destination. We want to grow. And there are 4 ways to grow. 1, get the best product in the box. 2nd is the best customer experience. And then the brand's experience is the 3rd one. And then the influencer's experience. So, and we would break down each and every one of them. Think of the 10 commandments. When the Hebrews, and talking about faith, right? I feel faith can, if you are, I am not necessarily, I'm Jewish, but even though I don't go and I practice Judaism fully, I do believe that there's a lot to learn from it. So the Hebrews, first thing they received was the 10 Commandments. They did not, and no one handed them over a pamphlet of the Bible and said, hey, by the way, there's a lot to learn over here while you're in the desert, Exodus from Egypt. Like, no, they just said, let's start with the basic 10 commandments, like a billboard. Before you learn any of this, shall not kill, shall not lie. Now, when we know the basic, we can take time and we can build it into communities. One, understand each rule. Now let's go and write books about every rule. What does it mean? An eye for an eye. Well, if Dr. G poked my eye, but it was a mistake, what do we do? Well, Dr. G might compensate me. It doesn't mean I have to poke his eye. There are all those rules that come after. But the basic rule, let's start understanding that in lieu of having a priest next to you or a rabbi next to you or imam, everyone understands the core, right? So it's the same for your business. And that's something you can absolutely take from the religious perspective. There is a reason why everything was structured the way it was, right? You have to digest things little by little. First generation was generation of slaves going into the desert. They were an alphabet. They didn't know how to read and write. Okay, you can remember those 10 things. Okay, the next generation had a lot to learn and was expected to know more. So in my case, I figure you just join up at my company. I need you to know what we're all about, and it needs to be quick. So that's the executive summary. We're going to grow, and this is how. 4 ideas. And no matter what, your ideas going forward would be working because you understand what highway you need to take. So every idea you're going to have, if it's a tactic for one of the strategy, or if it's a sub-strategy for some of them, they're all going to be connected to the same major highways, and they're all going to stick. So that is where you have a goal-oriented business, where you have eventually 200 people, but guess what? They all know very simply how to get where we want to get. So no matter what they throw on a wall, it hits. It's like all the vectors go in one direction, you pierce through any problem. And that's how you can conquer with a very small group of employees. At the time when we sold the business, we had about 150 employees, in opposed to other companies that were my size, there were only 2, and they had about 500. And you ask yourself, why? Well, it was very efficient. We didn't take wrong decisions. All our decisions made it. Every decision made, we understood why we're doing it and how to do it.
Wow, dude, that was amazing. So if you talked about those 4 pillars of the business, you said grow was one of them. What are the other 3, or did you mention them?
No, that was a goal.
Okay.
It's very easy when you only have one goal. The pillars are the destination. So think about you wanting to drive to New York City. Your goal is to reach New York City, right? And you're coming from Miami. Your strategies are your highways. Your tactics are the pavers, are the bridges. Now, if you say, all right, so the destination is your goal. I didn't write down a complicated mission statement. I'm here to save the penguins and all. I feel that this is a bunch of business. I graduated from business, so no pun intended, but it's a bunch of BS that you learn in business school, where they pollute your mind with garbage that is unnecessary. All you have to do is, what are you going to do? Do you want to grow your business? Okay, write it down as you go. I want to grow my business. What can help you grow your business? Let's ask yourself, is that a strategy or is that a tactic? That practice takes time. You can't answer that right away. Sometimes it's confusing and there's no shame in that. It took me a while. I would ask myself, is that idea a tactic or is that a strategy? It takes a while, but once you understand what is a strategy and what is a tactic, and you said, I just cannot find any other strategy, so let's just work on those 4. Perhaps there is another one, but just on those 4, that's enough. I have 4 highways to reach the destination, New York City. So now, in the lieu of having an officer on site, everybody understands I just got to drive north on the 95, and I'm going to reach my destination. If someone shows up with an idea that say, wait, listen, and we would do this practice with new employees that come over and say, I'll give you an example of what is not a good idea. If you tell me every Tuesday, I want us to go and just drop what you're doing, let's feed the homeless. I said, all right, let's see. Does that help me get better? We asked first, we had 4 ways to grow, 4 pillars. Get the best product, get the best experience for the members, best experience for the brand, best experience for the influencers. Does it give a better product in the box? Absolutely not. Does it help the experience by any way? No, it actually hurt it because customer service doesn't respond emails. Does it help the brands? No. Does it help the influencers? No. Then guess what? It doesn't help us grow. This is a for-profit organization. No one is going to pollute my business with all the mumbo-jumbo stuff that would go like, let's make the world a better place. No. Right now, we make the business better business. So it doesn't help me grow. We're not doing it. It's like you're telling me, look at this beautiful bridge. Let's use this bridge. Yeah, but that's on the I-10. That takes me to LA. Beautiful bridge. Doesn't take me to my goal. This is why you got to be goal-oriented. You got to be very focused. And the ones that are focused, those are the ones that win. You can take the best, brightest minds. If they're not focused because they didn't articulate themselves really quite quickly, what do they want to do in this business and how they're going to get it? And instead of doing that, they write a very complex, unclear, even for themselves, mission statement. Guess what? The small group from a community college can outbeat Harvard graduates and so on because they're focused. Every group, everyone, if you look at Instagram, if you look at the PayPal mafia, if you look at if you look at Tesla, if you look at every company that made it, it started with the core 2-3 people that understood the business and made it so clear for everybody else that they understood from the day they came why we're here and how we're going to win. It doesn't just give clarity. It gives excitement. It gives camaraderie. It is. And that's when you get great motivation for everybody. You believe that you're with a winner team. That's why.
Wow, man. And Yosef, that's freaking amazing. And what's so funny about that is in the entrepreneurial world, I train and work with a lot of entrepreneurial mindset people. And I was in the same boat where you get distracted by so many potential opportunities that really harnessing that focus on this is what we're doing. We're growing this one business. Focus on that instead of, oh, this is kind of going, let's go over here and work on this thing and then work on that thing. And now you've got all this different irons in the fire type deal. And then they're stressed out because they're doing all these different things. And so you man, that is so clear. And it's so simple. And most things I find are really simple. They're just not easy. The hard part is actually being disciplined.
You know what you just mentioned when you said, oh, I just see another opportunity since we're already doing this. Let's go into this total addressable market. Let's try this category. What happened is every category has its own politics, has its own challenges. If you ask yourself, okay, what am I doing? Can I take this business to 100 million in sale or a billion in sale? Can I? If you feel you can, and you allow yourself to be distracted by other opportunities, you'll never make it. You only go to other opportunities when you have taken such a big space in your space, where you say, okay, I can maybe grow, but I'm already 50% of the space or 50% of the space. That's it. It's going to be hard. Now it's time to scale and go to another business. But if you're just 2% and the number one in your space is 60%, then you have a long way to go. And most people, once they start seeing a little bit of challenge and growth, they jump into another business. But guess what? They're going to find the same exact challenge, right? They're never going to go and and to be honest with you, I speak from experience. I'm grateful to tell you that I've done those errors, right? Once I started doing SEO well, I found that I can make money just by driving traffic to my website. I can make, and I was making a little bit of money everywhere. But then eventually one day I was thinking to myself, well, I gross about 800,000 in sales, all combined with all mostly it's for my liquidation company. That was back then before BoxyChop. And I was actually in the honeymoon and I was thinking about this, talking to one of my employees that was doing all my side projects that was generating perhaps 100 or 200,000 a year. Well, the rest was chunk. The bigger one was the liquidation. And I enjoyed doing those because it was fun. And I thought it can scale to a lot more. But then I said to myself, you know what? I'm running into the same thing. There's politics in this business as well. My competitors, the big ones, are doing about 40 million a year. What am I playing over here with all this stuff? The difference is they're focused only on one thing. So while I was talking to them, I said, you know what? Cut it all off. Go to the liquidation guys, ask them if they need any help, and just merge with them. I just cut off all the projects. It was real. It was an epiphany that you get while you're doing something. Sometimes you get this sheer vision of where you have to be. I'm like, it was all wrong.
Yeah.
And another experience, so when I say it's not to put someone down, that was mine.
No, yeah, I get it. And that's what I love about you is you're speaking about things that you've experienced. But do you remember the emotion that you felt in that moment when you had that clarity?
Yes.
Do you remember that feeling? What can you describe that?
It was excitement. It's a day one all over again. When you do a bunch of stuff, it doesn't feel anymore like a day one. And I'm sure people understand the day one analogy that Jeff Bezos gives. Every day should be your first day because the first day is where all the potential is there, where all the excitement is there. Versus day two, those are companies that are like sinking ships that have done already their parts. Now they're very bureaucratical. They focus on the process, not on results. There's a lot more to go and learn from that. So it was like a day one for me. It's like, okay, we're taking this to a next level. And it was like 3. So that business was about, I want to say 8 years old when that hit me. 3 years later, I was doing about 10 million in sales from 800. So it was and then after that, I decided to ditch this business and eventually sell it because I saw all the potential in BoxyCharm. And just for perspective, what happened once you already accomplished something? It took me roughly 12 years, about 10 years to, 9 years, 9 years to reach 10 million in sales in the liquidation business. It took me 2 years to reach 10 million in sales in BoxyCharm. Because actually we started as a soft launch in the second part of 2013, but we actually launched it fully January 2014. 2014 was 1.8 million, but 2015 was 10 million. So it's something where if you've been there already, and this is where I would always challenge that people who haven't done this should never teach, right? Specialty things maybe, but because perspective only comes from experience, doesn't come from reading books. And the difference between a person with perspective and a person that read books is or theory is me. First 9 years, how long did it take me to reach my size versus coming into a new business within 2 years, I reached the same exact because I had the perspective. I knew all the right buttons to press. I understood how to drive this vehicle. It was a lot easier.
Yeah.
And that's how,
that's amazing. And we say that all the time. We call it consider the source, especially in today's day and age where there are so many gurus on the internet, that you could find a guru about anything. But the first couple questions you need to ask is, okay, is this person speaking from experience? Or have they actually done the thing that I'm looking for? Because anybody can talk a good game. So, man, those are some amazing insights. I really appreciate that. What kind of projects you working on now? Anything major that you're excited about that you're moving on?
Yeah, I do. I do have two things. I mean, you know about my podcast, and it's mostly leisure, but it's a great podcast called Liquidity and Liquor. And then, but that's a leisure. I do have obviously investment because after you sell, a big piece of what you do is managing your money, and it's just boring stuff, nothing exciting to talk about. Investments, in general, a lot of money if you know what you're doing, but it's not interesting. At least not as much as a monthly beauty subscription box. And there's a lot to talk about that. I do have two projects. I like to talk about them when they're done, but I'll put this aside for now. I'm not going to talk about what I do yet. Once I officially launch something, people will know.
That's about it. I'll have you back on it. I'll be back on in the future, and you can talk about those things as well. Because I think you're just a well that hasn't even begun to be tapped at all, in a 30-minute conversation. So, man, Yosef, I really appreciate your time and taking some time to share your insights. You had some amazing stuff. I say this a lot when people hit some amazing thoughts or pointers. I tell people to watch this again, watch it again and again, because you're going to get different insights as you grow as a person, as an entrepreneur, as a individual in business. So once again, man, I want to
one point, because while we were talking, I was trying to think about your pillars, and so one particular part is relationship. When we talk about relationship, and I don't think one is more important than the other. I think it really depends but specifically about relationship, there's something to say about being charismatic and knowing how to build relationship, genuine relationship, right? Relationship can be, if you're using a tape, right, cassette tape back then, and you wanted to listen to song number 6, you had to kind of speed it up and rewind it, right? So think about this like a record player versus a CD. Okay, if you have great relationship and the ability to, and this is nothing I believe you can you can enhance everyone's ability to do it well. You can kind of like give a couple pointers, but some people just have it better than others. But charismatic people would have better success if all things are equal, right? It's not the only important thing, but if all things are equal. So think about the tape. If you go through a process, you have to speed the tape from on a cassette tape from song 1 to song 6. But if you have a record, you just lift the nil and you put it right there on song number 6. This is when you're good at relationship. It takes you straight to the place, right? It is something to say instead of running through everything else like everybody else. You're just being put out there. I like to say it like this, and also relationship is there is one derivative for relationship, which is leadership, because it's relationship with your staff. And the only advice I can give, because I cannot teach anybody how to be a good leader in a 5 minutes parts in a podcast, but what I will say is that proficiency would make you a better leader. Proficiency in your business. Without a proficiency, you're eventually going to run into a point that people will understand you don't know, and no matter how charismatic you are, it's going to cost you. There will be a toll, and it would be an image toll by your employees. They would say, he doesn't know. If you're not a charismatic person, but you're very proficient, guess what? They'll respect you. They'll understand that he knows. At the little, no one was able to solve a problem, but they know that if they'll come to you, you will have the answer. And you're the one that's always right, because you're that good, understand the business. And now, why is it important to say that? It's because, and I've seen this time and again, I sold more than one business. Both companies I exit, actually. And I've seen that the challenge where a person that buys a business mostly has really good understanding on finance, because they know how to leverage money and buy businesses. And in both cases, that's what I had. In one of those advices, I would say, one of those cases, I've seen that one of the founders was not proficient in its own business. He was placing people to do certain jobs, giving them KPIs and wait for the results. The challenge is when you're not proficient, you don't know what good is. You don't know if I'm good or not, because you don't know anything about that space. I'll ask you to do something specific, you wouldn't understand anything about it, and you're not inquiring to learn enough, because you don't want to challenge yourself and look bad in front of yourself and others. So you say, well, my job is to let other people do my job. That's a bunch of bullshit. You only do it, you have to know if they're good. And the only way to know if they're good is for you to have at least a basic understanding of what good is. Because if not, expect what you don't expect. And then if you do not know why things don't work out, you don't know that Johnny here drops the ball because he's horrible, but everybody else do the job, but you wouldn't understand that. But guess what? Johnny is a master of disguise. He can write you a beautiful presentation. You would never know, because you don't know you have no proficiency in that skill, right? So at some ports, people would look at you as the inefficient part in the business, and they would disrespect you. And that's when the good people start leaving. And in relationship and in leadership, that is a critical part. So you have to be proficient. If there's one thing to say, when everything falls down and nothing works and you're completely non-charismatic person and you have a very monotonic voice and very high pitch, people would say you need to have a deep voice, non-monotonic, all that. You got to be this and that and tolerant. Let's just say you don't have any of those. But if you're proficient, people would respect you. They respect your opinion. So be proficient.
That is amazing. Well, and what a way to end the podcast, because that is something that I think a lot of people get wrong. They try to fake their way through things, and if you don't know and you can voice that and just get the experience to where in the future you do know, and say, hey, I don't know right now, but I'm going to find out. I'm going to figure it out, and be honest with people and have that I don't know, faith, that trust, build that trust with others. So be proficient. I love it. Well, hey, Yosef, I can't even tell you how amazing this was for me personally, but I know people listening to it as well, they're going to get a lot of value. And I really appreciate you being on here. Everybody should look him up. Look up Yosef. He's on Instagram. He's on, you're on all the social media channels, but check his Liquidity in Liquor. Check that out as well, that podcast. So thanks again, sir. I appreciate you. And we'll have you on again after the next projects come out, and you can tell a little bit about that and, have a little more, value for others, because, man, I know you can give a lot of that. So thank you.
With pleasure, my friend. I'll be happy to. Thank you.
All right. Yes, sir. Talk soon, and appreciate you. Thanks for listening to the Fix Your BS Belief Systems podcast, where we talk about relationships, business, career, finances, health, and faith. I'm your host, Dr. Greg Persley. Until next time, see you later.